So welcome back, my name's Mark, this is Supersonic Sax, and if it's your first time here, this channel is all about learning how to play the saxophone correctly from a mechanical perspective, so that you're never fighting with the instrument technically, so that you're free to use it musically in any situation. Since its invention in the 1840s, the mouthpiece has changed more than any other aspect of saxophone design. The saxophone was originally conceived as an orchestral instrument that would combine the properties of both woodwinds and brass, and be able to blend well with the other instruments in the orchestra. As it gained popularity in the jazz and swing eras, the sound concept that composers and players were looking for shifted to something brighter with more volume. And as a result, mouthpiece design evolved in line with this trend. Now let's hear some examples of the different kinds of mouthpieces and what they might be used for. I'll say up front that I don't really have a very big mouthpiece collection because what I'm looking for is usually versatility. If the mouthpiece allows me to use it in many situations, then I don't have to worry so much about its design and I can spend more of my effort just practicing and improving on that mouthpiece. I'm not sure how many or if any original Adolph Sax mouthpieces are still in existence, but the closest thing we still have today is probably what was being made by most major companies up until about the 20s or 30s. These mouthpieces had very large chambers, excavated sidewalls, no baffle, and relatively small tip openings. These kind of vintage mouthpieces that are closer to the original Adolph Sax design tend to feel pretty resistant compared to modern designs. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. You just really notice that you're pushing against something when you blow. That being said, these mouthpieces can produce a very warm sound, which is very well suited to playing etudes or what is generally called classical music. I tend to prefer modern mouthpieces that retain the large round chamber, but then get a little bit more volume and edge through a larger tip opening and a little bit of baffle. I find that with them I can still play music like the previous example. But they also provide that extra flexibility and pop to the sound that is useful for more modern styles. Players will often change their mouthpiece depending on the type of sound they're after, which can be very effective. But if you don't want to go on a very expensive mouthpiece safari, you can also do the same thing just by adjusting your reeds. For instance, here is an example of the same style of mouthpiece we just discussed for alto, but on tenor, and using a tenor sax reed. If you're looking for a little brighter sound, instead of getting a mouthpiece with a higher baffle or a smaller chamber, you can do something similar by just switching out the reed. For instance, here is the same mouthpiece but using a baritone sax reed instead. So usually, all the mouthpieces that I play on are similar to the ones you've just seen. The one exception, at least for now, is on baritone sax, where I use a mouthpiece that has a bit of a step baffle, which helps to brighten the naturally dark tone of the baritone. Even though this would usually be classified as a bright jazz or even rock mouthpiece, I like it because, for me, it's very flexible, so I can use it for stuff like bebop. But with that same mouthpiece, I can still get a kind of delicate sound that works well for etudes. So that brings us to the question, does the mouthpiece really matter? Yes, the choice of mouthpiece can color the sound you're getting from bright to dark or anywhere in between. And different mouthpieces respond in different ways, which might be appropriate for different styles of playing. But in the end, it's still going to sound like a saxophone. And most importantly, you're still going to sound like you when you play. There was a famous story about John Coltrane trying many different mouthpieces and playing for somebody and asking, which one do you like best? And the person listening replied, it all sounds like John Coltrane to me. Then which mouthpiece should you use? Like the reed, play whatever works best for you. Something that allows you to get the sound you're looking for while also being able to play comfortably from low B flat into the upper register. If you're just starting out, it doesn't matter so much. You can use the stock mouthpiece or maybe upgrade to a Yamaha 4C or a Selmer C-Star. And if you've been playing for a little while and you want to try something else but you're not sure which direction to go, something middle of the road like a Meyer 5 on alto or an Autolink 7 or 7-star on tenor works pretty well for most people in most situations. But the biggest thing to remember is this. The amount of time you spend practicing is going to have a much bigger effect on your playing than which mouthpiece you use. Probably one of the more common questions is whether or not there is such a thing as a high note mouthpiece. The short answer is resoundingly no. There's no such thing as a high note mouthpiece. The longer answer is there's still no such thing as a high note mouthpiece, but certain designs can make it a little bit easier to move around up there. The upper register on saxophone is a fundamental property of the overtone series inherent to the instrument. This means that any mouthpiece with the right reed should be able to produce the full range of the saxophone, which is at least 3.5 to 4 octaves. Take for example the mouthpiece that is closer to the original Adolph Sax design. Now there's a lot that could be improved about that, but assuming a basic level of mechanical function of the hardware of the saxophone, the quality of the sound being produced and whether or not the full range is possible is almost entirely dependent on the player. Now in my experience, it does seem like more open, free-blowing, modern mouthpiece designs make it a little bit easier to move around the full range of the instrument. They also seem to make it a bit easier to play into the extreme high register beyond the 4th octave, as I've done on tenor sax in some previous videos. But ultimately, all of this is possible if and only if you know how to manipulate the acoustics of the instrument through the subtle control of wind power, embouchure pressure, tongue level, and so on. At that point, you can do pretty much the same thing with any mouthpiece. If you'd like to learn more about the mouthpiece, definitely check out Theo Wane's website. And if you'd like to learn more about playing the full range of the saxophone with ease, check out the free mini ebook and the method book as well in the link below. That's all for now. Keep doing those breathing exercises and I'll see you next time.